Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Prep Life. Let's talk about these hypersonic missiles. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia is believed to have used 6 Kinzhals, hypersonic missiles, which fly many times faster than the speed of sound. In fact, they temporarily caused Europe's biggest nuclear power plant to lose power. Now, why is this going to change the game in the war in Ukraine? Well, here we go. There's 2 types of these. A hypersonic missile, number 1, travels about 3,852 miles an hour. The first one is HGV, Hotel Golf Victor, a hypersonic glide vehicle which leaves the Earth's atmosphere and then plunges back into it. Hard to detect, almost impossible to detect, and then by the time you get to detecting, almost impossible to react because it's going so damn fast. The second is the hypersonic cruise missile, which, while not as fast, flies low and extremely high speeds, gives opponents little time to react, and can carry a nuclear payload, like a nuclear warhead. Now, why is this going to change the game? Well, because the Ukrainians can't defend against this. Like, if you're Ukraine and you're Zelensky, you come to America and you say, hey, man, big brother, we need your support. You gave us Strikers, Bradleys, tanks. Now we need those F-16s. Well, no, we drew a line in the sand, but I guess this is a valid reason to give you air superiority. Because air superiority, on top of other things like, I don't know, the tactical advantage on the ground, like ground superiority, naval superiority, all these things matter. And certainly if you lose air superiority, you lose the battle. So a good case in point is we said no Brads, no tanks, no Strikers, and they made the case, and we said, okay, here you go. But absolutely no F-16s, and they're going to make the case. Here's my problem with this, guys. Again, I've already illustrated this in the last video. Most of my videos on Ukraine, I support Ukraine. I just don't support an endless war and pumping hundreds of billions of dollars into a war when we, the American people, have no clue where that money's being spent or utilized in the end objective. Yes, certainly you could read a PowerPoint presentation that has the bullet point. Yeah, okay, it's going to the Ukrainians. But how is this going to end? Now, I talk about the North Korean War, the Korean War as it's known, from 1950 to 1953, because it's a good case in point on how we screwed this up before. It's very different than the Vietnam War, even the GWOT, but there's a clear, perfect example called the Forgotten War, the Korean War, that was fought from 1950 to 1953, almost in the same circumstances. So we have annexed areas that, in this case, the Korean Peninsula, the Japanese give it up because we dropped bombs on their heads to end World War II. Dose of those. So then we go, what do we do with Korea? And then the Chinese and the Russians, they go, oh, this needs to be the communist peninsula. Except we're like, no, we can't afford to spread communism throughout the world because we see how it works out. Here we are 70 years later, and we know exactly how it works out because Russia is invading Ukraine. North Korea's people are starving. Like, here we are. So when it comes to the Korean campaign, we are in a proxy, like literal war with Russia and China. I told you guys before, if you didn't listen to it, watch the content in the video that I did prior to this, not the Homestead one, the one prior to that, about North Korea. North Korean MiGs were occupied by Russians, like Russian pilots dressed in North Korean uniforms, often flying Russian MiGs that were disguised as North Korean MiGs. Now, why would that be an issue? Well, because it's proxy. Why was it forgotten? More likely because the political climate didn't allow us to talk about it because it was ugly. If we talked about it, we would potentially be in a war, a full-blown war with superpowers, Russia and China. So instead, we play this game, this proxy game. Oh, so if we provide the tank that kills the Russians, that's not the same thing, right? And then China's like, oh, we'll provide lethal support to Russia, and that's not the same thing, right? And then before you know it, we are literally 3 years into a campaign with tens of thousands of Americans dead, which is the Korean War, and then we draw a line in the sand and we, forget about it. I mean, what is the end objective? So the current administration pulled out of Afghanistan sloppily. I just made that word up, sloppily. But they did that, and they called that good. Like, hey, we're going to pull out of this war, hand over the non-combatant evacuation order to the most incompetent organization in the government, the biggest bureaucracy, the State Department, and they're going to get this done. And they didn't. And that cost more Americans' lives and more Afghans' lives because we left them behind. I know because I spent hour upon hour working with Chad Robichaud, Amber, all these great nonprofits, including Mighty Oaks Foundation, trying to save our allies. Thank God I got my interpreter out that was my SF soft commander. He was an interpreter that I recruited, turned into a special operations commander who only swore his allegiance to America because we had this agreement. Like, we're not going to screw you if you don't screw us, and we wind up screwing them. This is how these things unfold. So it's not hard to see the path here with a hypersonic missile. A reported range of 1,200 miles with a payload of 480 kilograms. The missile may reach speeds of up to Mach 10. Vladimir Putin says Russia is the global leader in hypersonic missiles whose speed, maneuverability, and altitude make them difficult to track and intercept. In Ukraine, the missiles were first used in March of 2022 to destroy a fuel depot. Now they're being used more and more. And the Ukrainians are like, I don't know what to do because they can't stop these. In fact, they hit a power plant, knocked out the power to Europe for a period of time and to Ukraine for an extended period of time. How are you going to defeat this? Well, I don't know. Dominating air superiority with American equipment. How about we just bring in the pilot to train the Ukrainian? How about they just do a right seat ride? You know, how about we just allow the American pilot to fly it with a Ukrainian pilot? And then how about we're in Afghanistan again. We're in Iraq again. When are we going to learn a lesson? We're not. We're just not. And guys, I want to say this again. I support the Ukrainian people, and I feel bad for them. But this is a European theater war. Where the hell are the United Nations of nations that are offering their overwhelming support like we are? Like I said before, like what countries are helping America? Our fight against the cartel. Did you see that? Well, transitioning, very easy to transition into this one, where we have 4 Americans who were kidnapped after being attacked by a cartel on the border within 12 minutes of Brownsville, Texas, on the border of our nation. For most countries, that would be an act or declaration of war, right? You did that in Israel and Palestine, and that happened, that would be a declaration. We would go into that country and get our people back. But we just take it on the chin. 2 of those people were killed. And they went over to Mexico to get a medical procedure, and we're like, yeah, no big deal. So some congressmen and senators are asking that the cartels be on the terrorist watch list. Or, I mean, they're added to the terrorist list, period, because they're seen as terrorist organizations. And I've seen people say this out loud where they go, Mike, these aren't terrorist organizations. They're cartels. They're very different. No, they are not. If you look at the definition of terrorism, they're certainly terrorizing human beings on this planet. So their ideology happens to be for money, for drugs. That's no different because it's their religion. The difference between them and Al-Qaeda is I think they're better organized and just as brutal as Al-Qaeda. They're likely more dangerous to our country and our national defense and security than Al-Qaeda currently. Why? I don't know. 110,000 people died of drug overdoses. They're pouring over into our country and kidnapping and murdering and drug and human trafficking people. But we aren't paying attention. Until when? Like we've been fighting this war on drugs. Why don't we fight the war on drugs by fighting like the organization that's literally the drug, the cartel? I think Lindsey Graham is asking for 9 of these organizations to be named terrorist organizations. And you know what will happen then? It'd be very bad to be in the cartel because just the assets alone with bringing all the intelligence to the operational guys, God, wouldn't it be great to be on a little bird flying across the border to go hit a cartel target? Jesus. I would like come out of retirement for something like that. But when you look at that kind of circumstance, It's not likely to happen because the president of Mexico is like, we will have no intervention from the Americans. Oh, really? No intervention, huh? Okay, we'll see how that works out for your country. But we'll open our borders and just allow it to be as porous as possible to let these people just pour in. That's what we're doing. So a whole bunch of issues that literally boil down to the incompetency of the administration. The incompetency. I like the slip from the press secretary who said Obama instead of Biden yesterday when speaking about the president of the United States. We know who's running the show right now because Biden certainly isn't competent or cognitive enough. You got to wake him up first to be able to run the country. But it's why we're dealing with things like this. Moving on, you see the news report, 13 American citizens found dead in San Bernardino. According to officials from California, only one of them weather-related. It reminds me of the pandemic when somebody came in because it was a car accident, but they tested them, and then we related it to the pandemic. Like, what? They were just in a car accident. Except in this circumstance, you had people who literally died because they found them dead in 12 foot of snow 2 weeks after the original storm. And it's like, oh, they died, but yeah, they died of like in a hospice, or they died in care and they were old. How about they died because you didn't have the ability to get to them because you're more worried about your woke politics than helping people in real life? You ever consider that? But again, this is to the California citizens who are voting for the same idiots to be in charge of them. Governor Newsom, who is one of the most incompetent politicians of our lifetime, is running for president. Yeah, we'll see how that works out. I wouldn't be surprised if he got elected based on bizarre world that I'm living in right now. On top of that, I talked about North Koreans in the last episode because it's a significant issue. But if you look at North Korea right now, is communism working? Is their way of governance working at all? It's not. My buddy Tim Kennedy did a post where he showed the electricity or the grid shown from space at night, and there's zero power in North Korea. You know why? Because if you're a Korean official, you have power in your palace, but if you're a Korean citizen, a North Korean citizen, you have no power in your mud hut, overwatching your crop that's not growing because you can't grow food because of all the issues that are going on, and you're just starving to death while the North Koreans are getting fatter. Like, watching them get together is literally like a scene from Team America. It's pretty comical. But yeah, I mentioned that because in the Korean War, we drew the line in the sand with the DMZ, and we forgot about that war, not only after 3 years, and not only after tens of thousands of Americans gave their lives, including thousands of Americans we left behind in North Korea, we just forgot about it completely. And there are still Americans on the DMZ, and Korea is thriving. Japan is thriving. Germany is thriving. Italy is thriving. Why? Because of American lives and sacrifice. That's why. Because to thrive in anything, you need security first and foremost, and we're offering that security for the world. And what do we get? Nothing. What do we get for infrastructure support in Ohio? For the government to do its job in a chemical cleanup, for a pandemic to be like managed properly, we don't get anything. We have record homelessness, record crime, all the records of bad up, all the good down, and we get nothing because we're worried about policing the world instead of policing ourselves. And then when we do commit it, we kind of do a half-assed. We just dip our toes in the sand. We're not willing to commit all in. Or we're not willing diplomatically to bring people together to get it done because we have a lack of leadership, which is a huge problem. Moving on. I have to move on before my blood pressure goes to the roof. Moving on, we're talking about this newsletter me and Annie Stumpf did. The whole reason we've done a newsletter is because of the massive suppression from social media platforms like Instagram, like merchant service accounts like Stripe, and the list goes on. This will only continue to be a significant issue if you have a different way of thinking. I mean, I don't think I'm a radical thinker or radical business owner or radical person, but preparedness apparently is radical, so we get suppressed. I just had to call in a favor for a friend because my buddy Tom, Eagles and Angels, His stuff is getting suppressed. Why? He's taking service members' uniforms and putting them on swag to allow nonprofits to raise money for veterans who are suffering from PTSD, and that's a problem? Well, I guess if you're part of the platform, it's a problem. I mean, I get banned and canceled and suppressed constantly, like all my friends, including Andy Stumpf, because we have a different way of thinking. So what is the solution? Well, I have no solution except an email is going to be harder to campaign against or to suppress because Google is not going to make money off of doing that. So if I could do a newsletter and communicate to you and I don't have to worry about the social media platform to reach you, then that's going to be better. So we're going to provide value. We're definitely going to bring jackassery to the table as well because we want to have fun with it. We want to do special content. We want to do special deals. And we want to bring people in the fold in our circle, our very small circle of friends. Tim Kennedy, Evan Hafer, Matt, JT, the list goes on, and bring you special content and deals from them as well. Like the whole idea is value proposition, right? I want to provide you value. If I provide you value and you think that's valuable, then you'll support our companies. And then I could do this full time. I could be like the head of preparedness and distilling this information for you, and we can have this reciprocal relationship, this collaboration. I think a lot of people worry about like burning other people to the ground in order to advance their position, and that's a big mistake. I think the best way to do it is collaborate. Join in that link below under newsletter, and then we'll start sending out newsletters next week. We're going to do special events. We're going to do newsletters. It's going to be super fun. Also, Greg's on his way in with his business partner. We're doing jiu-jitsu at Fieldcraft Studios. What does that mean? Well, it means if there's going to be a scale at Fieldcraft, it's likely to be a Fieldcraft workshop in your backyard that has a jiu-jitsu studio tethered to it. So jiu-jitsu in the back end, simunitions like Casey and Amber and Kirsten teach for Fieldcraft Survival on the back end, first aid like Doc Jones teaches, survival and preparedness seminars, the list goes on. A community place where we could break bread, drink coffee together, build relationships, and reinforce resilience in our backyard. That's what we want to do. So expect that to happen very soon, working with Greg in the details here over the weekend. Because, honestly, I think jiu-jitsu is a great start point to build that resilience in yourself because you want to help your community, you want to help your family, you got to start by helping yourself. Homestead plans. Man, my bees are probably dead. The chickens barely made it through this winter. It's been a hard winter. And when you look at developing and building out your own homestead, here's what I want you to think about. You're not always going to succeed. You're going to fail. But as long as you adapt, you shift, you change, you shape your new homestead into the future, you're going to be set up for success. It's not just about the chicken coop. A lot of people think homesteading is like, get the chicken coop, check the block, call it a day. That's not what it is. Like, I just spent 2 weeks working on my Jeep in my front yard in the snow because I'm trying to fix this coolant system and just learning about the mechanics necessary to fix things like my Jeep applied to most vehicles. That's going to help you build out your sustainable homestead game. It's about security. It's about mechanics. It's about your setup. It's about survival. It's about sustainment. It's about all these things. Some of the things that I'm doing is I'm likely to do chickens for meat this next year. Dee, one of my employees, is practicing right now. It doesn't take a lot of practice to kill chickens, but she's working through it right now. She's going to share all of her lessons learned. We'll share those with you, including content we're filming for the new app that launches June 6th. But why not? I'll give it a try. My Insta garden, I try to do it in the greenhouse. I sucked at it. All my stuff died. Like everything I grew died. The exception to that was like the microgreens I grew in my garage because it was more climate controlled. More instability, more variability potentially sets you up for success because you learn from that, but sets you up from failure because you're going to fail. Well, if I just bring the garden inside into a controlled climate, I could do some things. I'm limited in most things, but I could do greens. I could do microgreens. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to turn my greenhouse into a chicken pen for the meat. I'm going to convert one of my bedrooms that gets a lot of good light into a small garden, and then I'm going to crush it. Bees, be alive, please. Likely not going to be alive. I'm not going to crack their open door because I'll kill the rest of them. It's like The Last of Us. I mean, these guys are like living The Walking Dead in there. If the queen and some of them kind of went down to the very small component of that, fed off the honey, kept themselves warm, they could be alive. I'll find out here in a couple weeks. But if they're not, I'll just reset it. I'll harvest their honey, kind of get them set up, build out more insulation, because I didn't realize it was going to snow like a record snow in the last 100 years. I didn't realize that I was going to have to build them a Taj Mahal of heaters to keep them warm. My bad. But they're bees. Luckily, you could start that over, and we'll try again this year. Lastly, alpine packing. My alpine goats have been living 2 years labor-free because I've been hooking them up, trying to get them fat, give them a healthy life. I have one of my guys who's a farrier come in and like farrier them. They're spoiled. They get like their nails done every Friday. They're fat and happy, and now it's time to go to work. I'm going to put panniers on their asses in about a week. We're going to start working the loads on them to see if they can carry certain amounts of loads for hunts. And then this hunting season, likely with my crew, my team, we're going to go out and do some hunts and then harvest in the backcountry and then load them out in the goats. Best case is we harvest elk. Worst case is the goats turns into a survival video for YouTube, and I want to harvest them in the backcountry of Idaho. I'm open to both, though, by the way. Guys, June 6th, the book Prepared launches. You guys can pre-buy that now. There's a link down below. And also, in conjunction with that, which my company's not very happy about me for, we are launching our application. What is our app? Well, we've been talking about it for like 50 years, and now it's finally here. We are developing the app right now where you could access this app on Apple, on Android, and everywhere that you watch TV. Samsung TV, Hulu, all the channels, because you could watch it on your TV or your cell phone or wherever you have your technology integrated. The cool thing is it's all about education for preparedness, but it's also about entertainment, and we are stockpiling that app with 60 hours of content for launch. I will also be doing a Prepped Life TV show every single day, Monday through Friday. That's all about current events. It'll be like the short form version of this, but everything that pertains to the day's current events. I'm stoked for it, guys. I hope you are as well. I appreciate all the support over the years. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification tab, all that good stuff, and have a good week. Till next time. Peace out.